to another episode of the NFL Network, not the NFL Network, capital THE NFL Network. This is the start of week 7, and we're going to take a look at the weekly power rankings. We're going to look at my week 7 predictions, but I'm going to start the show off a little bit differently this week. There was a story that came out this week, and considering that I'm not going to be doing the regular Reviewing Network live format this week, and seeing as how they are on a bye week this week, I might as well go ahead and talk about this real briefly. I'll be real quick on this, but the Dallas Cowboys are in the news this week, and not for the reasons that they probably hoped they were, because obviously the Detroit Lions completely embarrassed them as they got their revenge for last year's, was he eligible, was he not game, which the Cowboys were destroyed by the Lions 47-9, but this has just been a problem with the Dallas Cowboys all season long, that this team is not the same team they were last year. And you're starting to get the sense that Jerry Jones is starting to lose it for you. I would too if I hadn't been into a Super Bowl or an NFC Championship game in over 30 years. And he took it out on the radio host for 103, I think it was 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, Texas. This is, I want you to take a listen to this if you haven't heard it already, but you probably have, but if you haven't, take a listen to this.
Now, if you think I'm interested on a damn phone call with you over the radio and sitting here and throwing all the good out with the dishwater, you have got to be smoking something over there this morning. Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something and I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job.
Well, my job is to ask why.
Job, or I'll get somebody else to ask these questions, man.
Jerry, we're trying to figure out why the team is.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. You're not going to figure out what the team is doing right or wrong. If you are, or any 5 or 10 like you, you need to come to this meeting I'm going to today. There are 32 teams here. You're geniuses.
Jerry,
okay? Y'all really think you're going to sit here with a microphone and tell me all of the things that I've done wrong and without going over the right?
So that was a little bit of that clip there. I took that from the First Take segment that they did on Tuesday morning when that first came out. But so yeah, Jerry Jones literally threatened to fire these radio hosts for asking pretty straightforward questions about why the Cowboys are as bad as they are right now. Because let's be honest, the Cowboys are bad. They are really bad because they did not make any significant changes in the offseason. They did, significant additions, I should say. They did make significant changes, and we've already seen the after effects of that. I mean, look what Dan Quinn's doing now with the Washington Commanders. But the point of this is that you can tell that Jerry Jones is very frustrated from the fact that the Cowboys are not a good football team right now. And, maybe you could have some leeway here if you're Jerry Jones. But there's one little problem that everybody keeps bringing up whenever they talk about this, and I'm going to bring it up here. Jerry Jones was the one that said, we're going to go all in after the end of the last season. All in. So whenever you hear someone say they're going all in, you expect them to go out and get, big free agent acquisitions, the hottest draft picks out there, the draft prospects that everyone wants to get, and you want to get them. You'll do whatever it takes to get them. But just a clarification, let's go ahead and take a look back at the offseason for the Dallas Cowboys and see exactly what they did this year. Well, they re-signed Dak Prescott, which that was to be expected. Nobody was really not shocked that they did that. They locked up CeeDee Lamb to a 4-year deal with over $100 million. So, yeah, everyone was expecting them to do that. There were some talks maybe Micah Parsons might get a payday now, but they'll probably wait for that until after the season. But let's take a look at those acquisitions, those big free agent acquisitions they were going to bring in. Let's see. They brought Ezekiel Elliott back from New England after that 1 year he was there. Royce Freeman signed with them. He was with the Rams. Eric Kendricks, linebacker for the Los Angeles Chargers. Yay, that's some big free agent news. What about the trades they did? I mean, they probably traded for somebody big to help boost this defensive front, and they traded for Andrew Booth Jr. from the Minnesota Vikings. Oh boy, but their draft class. I mean, the draft class has to be so extraordinary. I mean, let's take a look at who they drafted. First overall selection was Tyler Guyton, an offensive tackle from Oklahoma. Marshawn Nealon, defensive end for Western Michigan. Cooper Beebe, a guard from Kansas State. Maurice LeFou, linebacker from Notre Dame. Kalen Carson, cornerback, Wake Forest. Ryan Flournoy, wide receiver, Southeast Missouri State. Justin Rogers, defensive tackle, Auburn. Nathan Thomas, offensive tackle, Louisiana. Yeah, all in. All in. Yeah, you guys completely screwed this pooch big time. I mean, good Lord. I mean, everything that could go wrong for the Cowboys went wrong for them, because everything was basically riding on everybody from the previous season who would stick around to stay healthy. Everybody get back on track. This team's gonna go back to where they were the last couple seasons. And then guess what happened so far guess what the season has amounted to so far? It's one disappointing loss after another. There's not been one convincing win from this team except that first game of the season against the Cleveland Browns. And even then, we had no idea how bad the Cleveland Browns were really going to be at that point. So, anybody could have beat the Cleveland Browns. I could beat the Cleveland Browns if I wanted to, but, this, and everyone wants to bring up the obvious here, so again, I'll bring this up here. They had a chance to sign Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, it's not like you couldn't have signed him to a deal from Tennessee. He wanted to play from the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, he literally was near Dallas, Texas when the season ended. There was an opportunity for them to go get him. And then the Ravens signed him to a 2-year deal worth $16 million, with $20 million is worth of the $20 million altogether. And then Jerry Jones says, we couldn't afford him. You couldn't afford to pay some. You couldn't afford him for half of that 2-year, $16 million deal. At $8 million, you could have gotten him. Maybe even more, because he wanted to. Maybe even less, because he wanted to play there, and he would have probably taken a hometown discount. But nope. You decided to go get Ezekiel Elliott again to bring back that magic from the years before. Yeah, great job on your all-in push there, Jerry. I mean, needless to say, the Cowboys are bad. They're terrible right now. This is a poorly put together team. From the fact that the defense, this Mike Zimmer defense, is completely getting dismantled all the time. In the 3 games they've lost, they've been outscored 119-53. That's terrible. That is absolutely 100% terrible. So the team is bad enough, but then again, okay, it's the Cowboys. They have been notoriously known for having these bad stretches, and they're not even that bad right now. They're just sitting evenly at 500 in terms of their record, but that's not the thing that people are taking away from this. And the thing that should be taken away from this is just the way that Jerry Jones is just talking to these guys, that he's agreeing to do this. Like, he's the only owner in the NFL that even does this type of thing. And, he agrees to come on there. And, these guys are asking questions that they're not softball questions. They're questions that are literally, you said you were going all in, you didn't do it, why didn't you do it? And then this is what the owner has to say after all this is said and done.
Now, if you think I'm interested on a damn phone call with you over the radio, and sitting here and throwing all the good out with the dishwater.
Throwing all the good out. Let's take a look at the good. I mean, yeah, you signed two of your players that you drafted to long-term deals. That's a good thing. But the old saying is a broken clock is right every once in a while. And yeah, you got it right those times. But what about everything else?
You have got to be smoking something over there this morning. Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something and I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job.
Well, my job is to ask why.
A job, or I'll get somebody else to ask these questions, man.
Jerry, we're trying to figure out why the team is.
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. You're not going to figure out what the team is doing right or wrong. If you are, or any 5 or 10 like you need to come to this meeting I'm going to today. There are 32 teams here. You're geniuses.
Jerry,
okay? Y'all really think you're going to sit here with a microphone and tell me all of the things that I've done wrong and without going over the right.
But you've done a lot of wrong. I don't want to get I'm trying my best not to get political on these videos, but I'm sorry, I gotta bring up the comparison here. This is like Donald Trump. Whenever Donald Trump is being asked a question, a straightforward question, one that's not being thrown as a softball to him, like a legitimate question, and he wants to do whatever he can not to answer the question, and instead just insult the interviewer. This is literally that type of behavior from Jerry Jones, because Jerry Jones feels like he's better than everybody else in the NFL. Keep in mind, this was the guy that literally tried to get Roger Goodell fired for no other reason because, oh, you suspended our running back. I'm going to turn the entire NFL against you. Let's see how you feel about that. And nobody believed him whatsoever. Roger Goodell got his extension, and yet Jerry Jones was made a laughingstock, and he was so pissed off about that. He did everything in his power to delay Ezekiel Elliott's suspension because he really believed that this team was going to go all the way that season, and they weren't going to go all the way that year. There's been so many things that has been wrong with this dude ever since that day back in '94, after they won back-to-back Super Bowls, when, Jimmy Johnson got all the credit and Jerry Jones wanted all the credit. So he's going to fire him and take up all the credit. When congratulations, you ruined what could have been a potential dynasty. Which, I know they won the 2 years after that, but at the same time, everything points back to Jerry Jones. And now it's just getting to a point now where 30 years after that, this team has become a laughingstock, and an embarrassing laughingstock, especially this week with the stuff that you just said. Somebody who's been in this situation for the past 35 years, like Jerry Jones, should know better not to stir the pot here, because this is the type of stuff that eventually leads to people getting fired or getting removed from their job. This year we've had a lot of the old changing of the guards in the world of football in general, and just sports in general. I mean, even in politics in general. I mean, Joe Biden had to drop out because his age is getting up there. But like what we had in the last season, Bill Belichick left. Bill Belichick was let go from the New England Patriots. Pete Carroll is no longer with the Seattle Seahawks as the head coach. Nick Saban, no longer the head coach at Alabama. Skip Bayless was forced out because he was getting up there in age. Jerry Jones is getting to that point. It's getting to the point with Jerry Jones where it's really not going to be surprising if this dude is forced out by somebody within the organization, because they can't keep letting him get away with this. Like, I know he's the guy that saved the Dallas Cowboys and brought them into relevancy. Okay, that was almost 30 years ago. Yeah, that time is gone. Like, you have not been to a championship game or a Super Bowl since 1996. Your team is this team that you still try to continue to assume as America's team. Like, nobody gives a crap about this football team anymore. Like, the only reason that your team is even memorable right now is because, one, you have a good quarterback in Dak Prescott. Two, you have a really good wide receiver in CeeDee Lamb. And three, because every time your team loses a game at home in a national primetime game, that shrine to your ego is filled with so many disappointed Cowboys fans that leads to so many memeable pictures. The fact that you always get pictures of people running in whenever the gates open, like, it's more memorable. The Cowboys are more memorable for the memes than they are for the actual team, and that's not a good sign. That's not a good thing for this football team going forward. This is something that I really do think that we're nearing the end of the Jerry Jones dynasty of the Dallas Cowboys. Somebody else has to come in and turn this team around quickly, and I think it has to start with getting rid of the guy at the top. And I know that's impossible to do because he's the guy who's at the forefront of it all. That'd be like saying get rid of the Rooneys, but they've been there since the very beginning. Like, it's not impossible for them to do it, but somebody would really need to come in with a massive, massive payday to convince Jerry Jones to leave, or at least, if you're not going to let him leave, demote his abilities as a general manager and owner. Take a look at what the San Francisco 49ers did once the whole Colin Kaepernick thing wrapped out. You know what they did? Jed York took a step back. He got John Lynch to be the general manager, and look at what the 49ers have become since then. They're a prolific Super Bowl contender, a team with a lot more possibility and prospect-wise of getting back to a championship. That's the formula that the Dallas Cowboys need to use with Jerry Jones. Like, Jerry Jones can still say whatever he wants, but just push him off to the side and let somebody else come in and do his job for him, because this whole thing was just embarrassing. It's an embarrassment for the Cowboys. It's an embarrassment for Jerry Jones. It was even more embarrassing than the Lions coming in there and just dismantling whatever hope there was left for that team, because, I'm looking at their schedule right now. After the bye week, they've got the San Francisco 49ers, they've got the Atlanta Falcons, Philadelphia Eagles, Houston Texans, Washington Commanders. That's 5 tough games against teams that are capable of making a deep playoff run. There's a good chance that when that Thanksgiving Day game comes against the New York Giants, which will probably be their next best chance to win a game, this team will be sitting at 3-8 with their season pretty much over and done with. Like, it's getting to that point where it's almost time to hit the alarm for this football team. Like, really, it's just something that they need to do a lot of damage control on this. They need to tell Jerry Jones, you got to step back, man, because this week was embarrassing for us. It's getting to a point where it's just we can't. You're on the cusp of he's on thin ice right now, pretty much. But like I said, they probably won't do anything because he's Jerry Jones. He's better than everybody else, Oh, we'll just let it slide, Like, no, the dude was literally was planning on firing these radio guys for asking him simple, straightforward questions that any other journalist would ask him. Like, it's embarrassing, man. It's an embarrassing situation. I pity the Cowboys fans who have to deal with this, but at the same time, I think it's funny that your team is as bad as it is, but I don't know. I wanted to bring that up this week because, one, it's their bye week. I wanted to save it for the next week, but I figured why not do it for their bye week. But yeah, so with that said, let's go ahead and get to the actual feature presentation, the reason why you're here. Let's talk about my Week 7 power rankings. Week 6 power rankings, I should say, and some familiar faces are back in the top 5. I think we have a new addition that I haven't added to the list yet as far as I'm concerned, but you see the list right here, of course, from top to bottom. Number 5, of course, is the Chicago Bears, which, they played a Jacksonville Jaguars team that is probably one of the worst teams in the league, but it was all about the progression of how Caleb Williams has really started to come into his own. Like, right now, the NFC North is in a position right now where if this keeps up, all 3 of those teams are going to be in the postseason. We're seeing the natural progression of Caleb Williams as a quarterback. We're seeing how, he's slowly but surely coming into his own. In Week 2 against the Houston Texans, he didn't look that great, but as time has gone on over the last couple of weeks, he's slowly but surely building his momentum. And if they play their cards right, this could finally be the long-term answer for the Chicago Bears they've been waiting for so many years. Like, Caleb Williams really is coming into his own. The defense is playing very well right now. Yeah, they've been getting some softball games, but right now the Chicago Bears are looking pretty good in a very stacked division right now. Dropping off from number 1 to number 4 this week, the Atlanta Falcons, but that doesn't really take away from the Falcons being really a good football team. But I mean, they still are one of the best teams in football right now. And yeah, everything on them is just clicking right now, even though, they played the Carolina Panthers. But this past week really did show that the Falcons still have a lot there to really get excited about. I mean, this is a team that has a good quarterback right now in Kirk Cousins. They have a good offense right now that's really clicking. The defense is getting better every week. I mean, right now they're playing some really good football right now, and they could really make an impact in that division, which again, kind of like with the NFC North, is turning out to be one of the more competitive divisions out there with Tampa Bay and Atlanta right now in the mix. But we'll get to Tampa Bay in just a little bit here. Number 3, the Houston Texans finally got a win against New England after all these years. 7 times before this, they lost every single game. This was their first win against the New England Patriots. And again, the New England Patriots aren't that great right now, but they are looking better with Drake May. But the Texans right now, they're continuing to prove my theory that this could be a team that could be fighting Kansas City for the AFC Conference in late January, and possibly a Super Bowl contender. Number 2, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have them up there because, they were resilient against the New Orleans Saints, who came back the Saints came back with a 27-point second quarter, and yet the Buccaneers just continued to do what they do offensively, defensively. They're a really stacked football team in general here, and right now they're putting 50 on the New Orleans Saints the way they did. I mean, they're a really good football team right now. Baker Mayfield's really coming into his own. They're clicking on all cylinders, even though there's a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. Tampa Bay right now really is one of the stronger teams right now in the NFL. And my number one, I have to give it to the Detroit Lions because, 47 points over the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. They wanted their revenge for last year when they got completely screwed on that Monday Night Football game. They got their revenge and then some because, man, that was a great performance for the ages for the Detroit Lions. That was one of their best games in franchise history, marred by, of course, the obvious elephant in the room, which is, of course, Aiden Hutchinson with that season-ending injury, which could have an impact on, if they make the playoffs or not, because he is such a critical piece to that defensive front. And we'll see if he's kind of like T.J. Watt in the Pittsburgh Steelers or Micah Parsons in the Dallas Cowboys. Once he's there, does that really change the overall ebb and flow of the defensive front? But right now, the Detroit Lions are really playing some of the best football in the league right now. They're getting these opposing teams with trick plays. They're getting them with all these different touchdowns they're throwing. Like the defense is getting better every time. They really are one of the most complete teams in the NFL right now, and that's why I have them as my NFC sleeper pick for the Super Bowl this year. They're really playing good football right now with Dan Campbell behind them right now, but as their head coach. But so that is the NFL Power Rankings for week number 6. Now let's go ahead and get right to the predictions. And to start things off, we've got a battle between it's the Sean Payton Bowl on Thursday Night Football. The Denver Broncos taking on the New Orleans Saints. Of course, Sean Payton was with the Saints for many, many years, 15 years to be exact. Actually, 16 years because he was the head coach in 2021 too. But now he's in Denver. The Denver Broncos are definitely a very mixed bag team right now. They're a team that. There's been those brief flashes of promise with Bo Nix at quarterback. They've won 3 straight. They won 3 of the last 4 after starting 0-2. And then this last week against the Chargers, they didn't really do a whole lot in general. But they're going up against a New Orleans Saints team that really fell apart after week 2. I don't know what the hell happened to this team. They were scoring over 90 points in the first 2 games of the season, and then they just cratered to the end of the world. They are one of the worst teams in football. They went from being one of the best teams in football to one of the worst teams in football in a matter of 5 weeks, and it's just what happened to this team? It's just it's crazy how this team completely fell apart, and this matchup does not get any easier for them because guess what? You don't have Derek Carr, so Spencer Rattler's going to start, but 2 of your biggest wide receiver weapons are now going to be playing tomorrow. Chris Olave has an injury that's going to knock him out for a couple games. Rashid Shaheed, who was one of the saving graces for the win in the loss to Tampa Bay last week, now he's out for the season. He's getting surgery, I think, tomorrow. But the New Orleans Saints right now are just in a bad situation here. And I think Sean Payton is just going to have a ball, but beating up his former team here. So I'm going to take the Broncos to win this one. It could be a close game overall, but I think Denver will have the upper edge here, even though they won't have Pat Surtain as the cornerback for this game. He's out with an injury. But I'm still going to take the Denver Broncos to win. I think they'll get over 500, giving them to go to 4-3, and the New Orleans Saints to drop to 2-5, losing 5 straight. And maybe Dennis Allen finally gets fired after all this, because I think he really is part of the problem why this team cratered as much as it did, because they looked great the first 2 weeks, and then they just fell off a cliff after that. Good Lord. Hello, Governor. It's the last NFL London game of the year, so let's go ahead and talk about the New England Patriots and the Jacksonville Jaguars with my horrible Australian accent trying to be a British accent. I swear this will be the last time because this is the last London game that we have here, but not the last international game because we have a game in Munich, Germany coming up in November. But the New England Patriots taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, which, this is a game, but I really thought about this game and thinking about maybe doing the same thing I did with my Tennessee-Miami prediction, just saying whoever wins, I'm calling it a tie because both teams are that terrible. I probably would have said that if it was Jacoby Brissett under center, but if you saw what happened last week with the Patriots when Drake May got his start, he played a whole lot better than I think anybody really expected him to. He got 3 touchdowns. Yeah, he had 2 interceptions, but I think he played a whole lot better than we expected because of that offensive line being banged up as it is. I mean, he was getting the ball down the field and got them into the end zone, which was more than what Jacoby Brissett was doing beforehand. So there is at least a bit of an upgrade here, and now there's an opportunity for Drake May to really show everybody what he can really do as a quarterback as a whole. And then you've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, let's be honest, I think Doug Peterson's going after this game no matter what happens. I think something has got to happen where, everything from the loss to the Bears last week, the fact that they're 1-5 right now, they're one of the worst teams in the league right now. Even though they have a top tier quarterback, they pay him a lot of money, and it's not like and this is the worst part about it. The Jaguars from the past with the Blake Bortles years, they weren't as good as they were until that 2017 run, but then all of a sudden, they have more talent on that team, on both the offense and the defense, than they've ever had, and now it's just like there's no excuse for this at this point. I mean, I think even if the Jaguars somehow win this game, I still think they get rid of Doug Peterson. What I would love for Shad Khan to do, as soon as I want them to go to the airport after this game is over. Doug Peterson's right behind Khan, and Khan says hey Doug, come here for a second. Listen, I left my phone back in the terminal. Can you go ahead and get my phone for me? And Doug's like, well, okay. And then as soon as he goes into the doors to the terminal, Shad Khan should just run up to the airplane and just fly, and that's it. That should be Doug Peterson's way of knowing that he's gone. To text him on his backup phone, us on that phone, and he's just like, yeah, find your way home, bitch. You're fired. I mean, that's what should happen with Doug Peterson right now, because clearly, if it's not Doug Peterson, then Press Taylor's got to go, because right now, that offense is struggling right now to get going. The defense is not playing good. It's only a matter of time before I think the Jaguars finally start to clean house and start rebuilding around Trevor Lawrence, because they can't get rid of Trevor Lawrence. They just paid him $55 million a year with this new contract that he has. So yeah, he's sticking around for a little bit here. So he has nothing to worry about. The rest of the team needs a lot of help, and I don't think they're going to get it from this game against New England. I think New England's going to go in and win this one. I think Drake May will have a much better day than Trevor Lawrence will. So give me the Patriots, go to 2-5. Jaguars drop to a measly 1-6. So we come to the 1 o'clock games on Sunday, starting with the Seattle Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. Speaking of teams that completely fell off the radar after a strong start, the Seattle Seahawks have lost 3 straight. That should give you an idea of who I'm picking here. But Seahawks have lost 3 straight. More and more proving that the wins that they had were not against really good football teams. They played the Denver Broncos. They played the New England Patriots. They played the Miami Dolphins, and these were back at the start of the season when nobody really knew what these teams were going to be like at that point. Is when the rough stretch started, and from that point forward, when they lost to Detroit, they lost to the Giants for some reason, and then they lose to the San Francisco 49ers. It became pretty clear that this Seahawks team really is not as good as people made them out to be, and this is getting to a point where, something's got to change for the Seattle Seahawks to get back on track here. And you're going into Atlanta, and the Falcons are playing with house money right now. Like I said, they're one of the best teams in football right now. I don't expect that to change whatsoever. I think the Atlanta Falcons will easily handle Seattle in this one. So I'm taking the Falcons to win this one. Give me the Falcons to go to 5-2, and the Seattle Seahawks to drop to 3-4. So then we have the Tennessee Titans and the Buffalo Bills. The Bills didn't play great on Monday night, but they got the win nonetheless, mostly because the Jets kept shooting themselves in the foot. Plus, the kicking game for the Jets is absolutely horrible, and Aaron Rodgers right now is horrible right now. Even though he had that one brief flash in that game, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But the Bills held on. They made that big trade on Tuesday for Amari Cooper from the Browns. That helps their offense a lot. And they played pretty good football for the most part here. They've had a couple of misfires here and there, but there was no reason to think that the Buffalo Bills were going to not come back from that loss against Houston and they beat New York enough. Now you're playing the Tennessee Titans team, which I can't believe they put Will Levis back in that game. The fact that Will Levis has not gotten the same kind of criticism that people like Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield, even Kenny Pickett has gotten, is just amazing right now, because Will Levis, you see commercials on him on TV all the time with the mayonnaise thing. And it's just like, why don't you stop worrying about your mayonnaise and worry about actually winning some games here? Because the Titans' one game they won was not because of Will Levis. They won that game because of Mason Rudolph going in there. And the fact that Brian Callahan continues to use Will Levis over Mason Rudolph when in the 5 games they've lost, Will Levis has been the reason why they lost. And yeah, you're telling me they're going to go into Buffalo and beat them. Yeah, that ain't happening. So yeah, pretty much another easy win here to pick out. The Buffalo Bills, I'm picking them to win to go to 5-2. Tennessee dropping to 1-6. For the love of God, get rid of Will Levis. He's not a good quarterback. Moving on, we've got an AFC North matchup between the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. The Bengals got a win on Sunday night last week against the New York Giants. I mean, barely. I mean, it still wasn't a great game overall, but hey, they got the win. Their season isn't completely over yet. Same can't be said for the Cleveland Browns. You know, they traded away Amari Cooper. It may not be the last thing that gets traded off of here. I actually heard from Tom Grossi's video today that maybe Myles Garrett gets traded. I don't think that'll happen. I sincerely doubt that'll happen because if you take Myles Garrett away from that defense, that's a big chunk of that defensive front for the Cleveland Browns. The only thing that's sustainable on that team gone, and that means they're really in desperation mode, which they pretty much are on the offensive front because they can't get rid of Deshaun Watson because of that. They have to honor that contract. So they're basically just saying, we're going along for the ride here. If we have to go 1-16 again, then so be it. We're going to do that. And yeah, they're going to a Cincinnati Bengals team that is getting some momentum back. They're playing good offensively. Defensively, not so much. The defense for the Bengals has definitely been struggling. The one saving grace for the Browns could be the fact that Nick Chubb is supposedly coming back for this game. After he suffered that injury last year in Week 2 against the Steelers. It could help Deshaun Watson out. It could help this team get back on track, but I don't think it's going to be enough to help save this team in general here. I think Cincinnati has the upper hand in this one. I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals to win this one, to go to 3-4, and the Browns dropping to 1-6. But it should at least be more competitive with Nick Chubb back in the game. And then we get to one of the more exciting games of this week, and probably a Super Bowl preview, maybe if we're lucky. The Houston Texans taking on the Green Bay Packers. The Texans are one of the hottest teams in football right now. The Packers, once Jordan Love got back into the picture, they're starting to find their way back again, and both of these teams are playing pretty good football right now. And last week the Packers beat the Cardinals very well. The Texans did a very good job against the Patriots, even though there's some cracks beginning to show with that team. Getting Joe Mixon back for the Texans was big, and it showed in that game against New England. This is a very tough game that could really go one of two ways. I mean, Green Bay is playing good football right now, and the Texans are playing some of the best football in the league right now. It's a tough call for me. I wanted to go with the Green Bay Packers, but I'm going with the hot hands. I'm going with the Houston Texans. I think they have a lot more to prove. They're trying to stick up there with the Kansas City Chiefs, who are currently the only undefeated team left in the AFC. I think it'll be a very close game between these two teams. It could be a very exciting matchup overall. And once again, could be a very exciting Super Bowl preview if we're lucky. So I'm going to go with the Texans to win this one. It'll be a close one, but I'm going to go with the Texans to go to 6-1 and the Packers to drop to 4-3. So that means we're heading over to the Indianapolis Colts hosting the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins were on their bye week last week, surprisingly got a win over the New England Patriots, even though neither one of those teams were really that good in that game. And yeah, the Dolphins are not a good football team right now. I mean, they're still waiting for Tua to come back. Supposedly he's coming back for maybe week 8, but by that point it might already be too late. But I also keep hearing that the Colts might bring back Anthony Richardson. Why would you put him back in if Joe Flacco has done such an amazing job for you guys already? I mean, Joe Flacco is winning you guys games more than I think Anthony Richardson could ever do, and I think it'd be very difficult to get rid of Joe Flacco right now, who's the hot hand. But if that changes and Anthony Richardson goes in, I might have to change my predictions on this. But then again, it's the Miami Dolphins -2. There's been nothing with that team that has convinced me that if Tua's not there, the Dolphins ain't that good. So I'm going to go with the Colts, barely. I think it's going to be a very tight-lipped game if it ends up being Anthony Richardson. But if it's Joe Flacco once again, I think they beat the Dolphins convincingly. So give me the Colts to go to 4-3, the Dolphins dropping to 2-4. And then we have another exciting matchup here, possibly an NFC Championship play, or even just a playoff preview in general. The Detroit Lions taking on the undefeated Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota was on their bye week last week. The Lions coming off of that big win against the Cowboys. This will be the ultimate test for the Detroit Lions, mostly because of what happened with Aiden Hutchinson. Like, how does this defense, respond to this? That's a big chunk of your defense gone. And like I said before, are we going to see a Lions team that's kind of like with T.J. Watt and the Pittsburgh Steelers and Micah Parsons and the Cowboys? Once you take those guys away, these teams become so easy to beat. I mean, I think the Detroit Lions have a lot to prove, especially against a division rival. If they can go into to the Minnesota Vikings home and beat the Lions the way they did last year to get to the playoffs and win the division, I mean, they could really stand out as one of the top Super Bowl contenders going into the rest of the season. I mean, this is a team that could beat the Minnesota Vikings. And, Sam Darnold didn't have his best game last week against the Jets either. So this could be very interesting to see what happens here. I am going to take the hot hand. I'm going with the Detroit Lions to win this one. There's a lot of excitement, anticipation after what they did to the Cowboys last week. And Minnesota's been off for a couple weeks. I'm going to go ahead and say the Lions go in here and give the Vikings their first loss of the season. Give me the Lions to go to 5-1 and the Vikings to drop to 5-1. So next up, we've got the Saquon Barkley Bowl, number 1, because they play again later in the year. We got the Philadelphia Eagles, and the New York Giants. And I'm trying to remember, where do they play this week? I think it's in Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. But last week, the Philadelphia Eagles barely got away with a win against the Cleveland Browns, and Nick Sirianni, there's a lot of controversy right now with the fact that it's at MetLife Stadium, so it's an away game. The next one I think is at the end of the year, January 4th. But there's a lot of controversy with Nick Sirianni, trashing the fans, even though they won the game. But they won it just barely. The Eagles, this is not the same Eagles team that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago and looked like the dominant team. Ever since they went 10-1 and then they just completely fell off the edge of the earth, they've been they're still a good football team, but they're just hanging on by a simple thread. And the Giants coming off of that loss to the Bengals on Sunday night, just that hope that they had to potentially get them to at 500 and right up there with the rest of the NFC East, but they just couldn't finish the job. And it doesn't help that, kind of like with the Jets, you have problems with kicking. You have a really bad offense right now. You won those games, and everyone got so hyped up that this is actually going to be. So, you're going to return to 2022 form, but you just look like the same team that I thought was going to be fighting for the number 1 draft pick. I mean, the Giants still feel like a team that's fighting for the number 1 overall pick, and I think they're going to do whatever they can to get Cam Ward or whoever's going to be the number 1 overall pick this year. And the running game is definitely better. I mean, it's definitely been better than most of the rest of the offense, but the Eagles have Saquon Barkley, and you don't think that the Philadelphia Eagles would love to have Saquon Barkley just run all over his former team in their own home too? I think this is going to be a big game for Saquon Barkley. I have no reason to believe that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to lose this game. If they lose this game, then that's when I think they need to start considering what their options with Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, and them. But I think Saquon Barkley is going to have a big day for them. I think the Philadelphia Eagles are going to run all over the New York Giants in this one. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles to go to 4-2, the Giants dropping to 2-5. So next up we have the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Rams, two teams that probably had high hopes going into the season, but as the year has gone on, we've started to realize that, both of these teams are really not that good. The Rams have at least the excuse of the injuries piling up here. Puka Nacua has been out. There's a possibility he might come back pretty soon in the next couple of weeks, but Cooper Kupp might be coming back this week too, and that will be a big boost for the Rams offense as a whole. The Raiders, are just a team that is just, they have no idea what their future is looking like here. I mean, they just traded Devontae Adams away to the New York Jets, so that's one big piece of your offense gone. They got rid of all their best talent last year, and this team is just really struggling to get anywhere right now. I mean, this is a team that really has no future going forward for them right now, and this is a game where I think the Rams can easily go in there, as depleted as they are. They could probably go in there and easily stuff the tar out of the Raiders, because the Rams are just a better football team than the Raiders, even in their state right now. So no real surprise with this one. Give me the Rams to go to 2-4, Raiders dropping to 2-5. Another game that really should not be a surprise to anybody: the Carolina Panthers at the Washington Commanders. Carolina Panthers are the Carolina Panthers. Washington Commanders, they're one of the best teams in football right now. Jaden Daniels, okay, last week I criticized the idea that this was going to be that Ravens Commanders game was going to be game of the year because I've seen these type of games with the Ravens, and the Ravens usually mop the floor with any team that they put up there as the hyped game of the year. But I'll give the Commanders this: they at least stuck with them. I mean, this was a game where it was really, really close, but the Raiders found a way to close that game out. I think Jaden Daniels is really putting something together here. And, with Dallas as the way they are, Philadelphia is still much of a question mark, and the Giants being as bad as they are, I think the Commanders are in good condition right now to keep this streak going. And then you're going up against the Carolina Panthers team that's absolutely horrible right now. Yeah, they're better against Andy Dalton, with Andy Dalton as the quarterback, but not by that much. I mean, really, it really is not that good right now for the Carolina Panthers. But I'm going to take the Commanders to win this one. No real surprise in that one. Give me the Commanders to go to 5-2 and the Panthers to drop to 1-6. And then we've got the Super Bowl rematch, the game that everyone has been waiting for since the overtime game last February. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers, meeting for the fourth time in the last 6 years, and two of them were for Super Bowl championships that the Kansas City Chiefs won in both games. And Chiefs are 5-0 right now. They're still one of the only two undefeated teams left in the NFL. The 49ers got that big win last week over the Seattle Seahawks. Barely, because this team is still struggling to hold on to leads, but this time around they were able to stop the Seattle Seahawks from winning that game. And I'm going with an upset here. I think the San Francisco 49ers have a lot more to prove in this game than the Kansas City Chiefs do. The Chiefs are getting better. This last game they had against the New Orleans Saints was probably their best overall game of the season so far. They're utilizing Juju Smith-Schuster more with the depleted wide receiver core, which just, it hurts me that the Steelers still didn't give them a chance to come back to Pittsburgh. But because you see what happens against the New Orleans Saints. But yeah, the Kansas City Chiefs, they're still pretty good, but I think the San Francisco 49ers have a lot more to prove in this game. They want to prove that they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs at their own game. There have been times when the Chiefs have not been as good as they have been, even though they have the undefeated start. And I think the 49ers can easily break that mold and find a way to win this game. I want to go ahead and give the 49ers a chance to win this one here. I could be absolutely wrong on this, and the Chiefs can go to 6-0. I think that's more of a possibility, but I'm going with my gut here. I'm going with the revenge factor. Give me the San Francisco 49ers to go to 4-3, and the Chiefs to have their first loss of the season to 5-1. After that, there will be no other undefeated teams left in the NFL in the 2024 season. And so we come to the Sunday Night Football matchup, the New York Jets and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Jets, what a week they had. After the week they had the week before, they towed up very well with the Buffalo Bills. They look like a much different team than they did the last couple weeks, but still lost to Buffalo, and Davante Adams still went over there, which basically tells you that the trade was already going to happen long before the trade actually happened. I mean, this was pretty much set in stone. The fact that on Tuesday, during the Pat McAfee appearance by Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams was already in the building, they set that up for weeks, and it's just... And now they're coming to Pittsburgh, which got a win against the Raiders, which I was impressed by. It was not only a good win, but a convincing win, too. The fact that the Steelers actually put 30 points on the Raiders was very surprising. I really thought it was going to be much closer than I think anybody really expected it to. But the defense came to play. The offense really did a good job of containing the Raiders when they needed to. Big splash plays by the defense and the offense. I mean, Najee Harris. Anybody who still wants Najee Harris gone needs to shut up after that game, because Najee Harris balled out big time. And, the results speak for themselves in that one. But this brings me to this game. And, this is the type of game that I hate, because in the history, when the Steelers play teams that have these storylines going into the particular matchups, it almost never works out well for them. I had a thing on Twitter a couple weeks. I think it was Monday night again. No, it was Tuesday. It was the day after. It was the day of the Davante Adams trade. I had a thing on Twitter talking about how I'm sick and tired of every Steelers Sunday Night Football game being preceded by the opposing team making the headlines with a big splash move or a story regarding the other team happening before every time this happens. Because every time this does happen, the Steelers always lose these games. Take, for example, week 1 of 2019. Antonio Brown gets traded from the Raiders to the Patriots, and the whole thing is just, hey, let's laugh at the Steelers for failing to avoid him going to New England, and the Patriots completely dismantled the Steelers in that first game of the season. Then week 15, Buffalo needs to get a win to get a playoff spot. Let's do everything in our power to get the Buffalo Bills a win. Week 2 is the 2020 wildcard game. Cleveland hasn't won in Pittsburgh since 2003 and haven't won a playoff game since 1994. We're going to put all the focus on the Cleveland Browns, even though the Pittsburgh Steelers were one of the best teams in the league that year. Doesn't matter. Push them off to the side. Cleveland needs all the wins they can get. Week 7 in 2022, Tua Tagovailoa comes back after that bad-looking concussion against Cincinnati 3 weeks ago. Put all the focus on the Dolphins. Week 14, Juju Smith-Schuster comes back to Pittsburgh on a terrible New England team. Let's have him bail out and have New England play their best game of the season. And then week 5 of this year, Cowboys have no Micah Parsons or DeMarcus Lawrence. Somehow still win the game. And now, this week, Davante Adams traded to the New York Jets, who need to win to defend De Fuhrer, Aaron Rodgers' decision-making, and guess what's going to happen on Sunday? The Jets are probably going to find a way to win this game, and this is just one of those things where it's just like I hate the sport sometimes. And hey, guess what? You know who else is going to be there on Sunday? Donald Trump, because the last time a Trump crony was at a Sunday Night Football Steeler game, that worked out well. Elon Musk was at the Steeler game against the Cowboys, and look at how well that turned out. Just everything leading up to this game is just a warning sign that something absolutely horrible is about to happen to this football team. And it really, maybe it's just me overthinking. Maybe I'm not even going to say maybe. It's just I am overthinking it because I've seen this team blow opportunities like this. This should be a game the Steelers should win. Should be. They probably won't. They probably will find a way to lose to the Jets just because of how bad the coaching can be sometimes. But here's the other thing. Here's another angle to the storyline here. There's been a lot of talk this week about Russell Wilson coming in here and being the starter for this game, which I'm not against this idea. I know a lot of people around here are against the idea. And yeah, Justin Fields did a good job. He's played very well for the Steelers so far this season, but not even he can save the team from games like the Colts game or the Cowboys game. I mean, this is a team that could have easily been 6-0, and if they go to like 3-5, where would they be at? If they are, they'd be 4-5. They'd be 4-5 if they somehow lose to the Jets and Giants. If they're 4-5 when the month ends, they ain't making the playoffs. That second half of the schedule is going to be so brutal, and this is a team that could find a way to lose to both the Jets and the Giants. Like, if I was running this team, I'd let Justin Fields start this game against Aaron Rodgers. See what he can do in this game, and if it doesn't work, let Russell Wilson come in, and then start Russell Wilson against the Giants. I think Russell Wilson starting for the Steelers would be a better option for the New York Giants game than it would be for the New York Jets game, because the Jets are trying to prove something. The Steelers need to do everything they can to shut down the Jets immediately. The fact that Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren are back-to-back in this game again helped out last week against the Raiders, and I think that plays a big part here. The defense also needs to step up big time because they can't let those chunk plays that they had against the Cowboys get the best of them this time around. But it's a tough one. Like, I want to say the Steelers will win this one, but I just can't get over this feeling that what I think is going to happen is going to happen. I think that's going to be the New York Jets going into this game, getting a win, and then all of a sudden everybody's talking about how, wow, the Jets are winners again. See what happens when we bring in Davante Adams? Aaron Rodgers was right all along. Because that's exactly what's going to happen. And then everyone here in Pittsburgh's going to be just like, why the fuck did you start Russell Wilson, Mike Tomlin? You're a monster. Like, yeah, that's the thing. That's the reason why Mike Tomlin would need to get fired, because half the stuff he's done since then, since that last Super Bowl run, hasn't been a sign that maybe this guy has been here too long. Maybe it's time to start anew. But hey, he's got no losing season record. But I don't know. So yeah, that's my anti-Steeler rant for the week. I have the Jet. I'm going to say the Jets win this one. Give me the Jets to go to 3-4, the Steelers to drop to 4-3. I mean, I just feel like it's going to happen. So, and then last but not least, we have a Monday night doubleheader. Just because, and hey, you know what? considering what the doubleheader is, one game will probably be a whole lot better than the other, but then again, maybe not so much. The first game we have is the Baltimore Ravens versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Two of the best teams in football right now. The Ravens, after that 0-2 start to the season, have really started to come into their own. That's what the Ravens do. They start off slow, and then all of a sudden they start going on this long stretch run. And they probably will. If I've seen the Ravens as of late, they will probably find a way to win every game the rest of the way. Like, I think they could be easily 15-2 at this point. Is by the time the season is over, with the way that they've been playing over the last couple of weeks. But they're going into Tampa Bay, who of course put the 50 burger up against the New Orleans Saints. This should be a fun game, but it could be another game like I thought the Ravens and Commanders game was going to go. And I think there's more of an opportunity for the Ravens and Buccaneers to be that type of a game here, because the Ravens get out to an early lead, and then the Buccaneers just have no way of getting back on track there. Plus, they've got Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry has proven the money for the Baltimore Ravens. I think he's got the most touchdowns for the Ravens this season. I mean, every game he's played so far, he's gotten at least one touchdown. So the Ravens are stacked right now, and it's going to be very tough for Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers to go into this game and get a win against this really good football team in the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think it's going to happen with this one. I can only hope it's going to be a good game like the Commanders game was, but I don't know. I feel like this is the one where the Ravens could probably win this one easily. So I'm going to take the Ravens to win this one, to go to 5-2, and the Buccaneers to drop to 4-3. And last but not least, we have the Los Angeles Chargers at the Arizona Cardinals. Chargers got a win against the Denver Broncos. It wasn't a good game. It wasn't a great game overall. It was kind of an ugly game, which almost got scary at some point. Like early on, like Jim Harbaugh going into the locker room for a cardiac arrhythmia. It's just like, good Lord. It was amazing that he was able to come out of that game and come out of that locker room and finish coaching that team, because, I mean, that's something you don't usually hear about. And the last time I think that happened was when Gary Kubiak was with the Houston Texans, and he had some kind of heart attack, or it was something wrong with his heart. It was like during a primetime Monday. It was during a primetime game too, and I think, but that was in 2013 when he was coaching the Texans. But I thought it was going to be something like that, but he was able to come back in that game, and the Chargers did very well against the Denver Broncos. Meanwhile, the Arizona Cardinals, I don't know what the hell they're trying to be. I thought at the start of the season, maybe there was going to be that little bit of the team that went into Pittsburgh and Philadelphia and just surprised everybody by beating them, but we have not seen that a lot. Yeah, they've gotten some wins that are just like, how the hell did you beat the San Francisco 49ers? How did you beat the Rams? This is not what I thought the Rams were. I thought the Cardinals were going to be this really good football team, and yet the four teams they've beaten, Buffalo, Detroit, four teams they've lost to, Buffalo, Detroit, Washington, Green Bay, they have not looked like that same team that beat the Rams and the 49ers. I mean, this is a team that has been struggling to get anything going, and now you don't have Marvin Harrison Jr. for this game. I think this is going to be a cakewalk win for the Los Angeles Chargers. I really don't see any way the Cardinals find a way to win this game, unless they really imply heavily on James Conner as the running back. But even then, I don't think that's going to be enough to really save this team in general. So I'm going to take the Chargers to win this one, to go to 4-2, and the Cardinals to drop to 2-5. So to wrap up my Week 7 predictions, here's to recap them. The Denver Broncos, I have them beating the New Orleans Saints. I have the Patriots over the Jaguars, the Falcons over the Seahawks, the Buffalo Bills over the Tennessee Titans, the Bengals over the Browns, the Texans over the Packers, the Colts over the Dolphins, the Lions over the Vikings, the Eagles over the Giants, the Rams over the Raiders, the Commanders over the Panthers, the 49ers over the Chiefs, the Jets over the Steelers, the Ravens over the Buccaneers, and the Chargers over the Cardinals. And I just realized that I didn't even give you my results from Week 6 from my NFL predictions, which I did pretty well. I had my best week overall at 12-14. 85% of my picks were correct, so hallelujah. That's 3 straight. I guess you could say I'm 4-2 right now on the season. We'll see if that changes this week. Will I be 5-2? Will I be 4-3? We just got to wait and find out. But thank you so much for watching the NFL Network for this week. If you like this video and you want to see more of them, check out some of the other videos I've done. Hit the like and subscribe button. And I'll see you guys next time. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. Take care.